Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today, we're going to be talking about the Nationals ace, Max Scherzer, and his availability on the trade market. In years past, the Nationals had not been willing to even consider trade options for Max Scherzer. This year, this trade deadline, it does sound like he's going to become a little bit more available, a little bit more gettable for the 29 other teams in the MLB. So we'll be talking about which teams can maybe look at getting him, and if the Nationals should actually trade him, and what kind of package they should be looking for in return. If this is content you guys do enjoy here at Utility Sports, make sure you hit that like button on today's video, and also subscribe for more Utility Sports content. It would just be really awesome to have your guys' support. So now let's jump into the actual video here and take a look at Scherzer's stat lines, not only for his career with Washington, but also this season alone at the age of 36 years old. He's been phenomenal yet again. He's aging like fine wine, if we're going to be completely honest. He's 7-4 this season with 105 innings pitched. He started 18 games. He's averaging almost 6 innings a start, so he's still going pretty deep into ball games on average. He has a 2.83 ERA this season with 142 strikeouts, only 25 walks, and a .886 whip. So what does this tell me about Max Scherzer this season? Well, he's still striking out guys at an elite rate. He's averaging over 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is among the elites still in the MLB. And he's also really going to be still strong with his control. He's been known throughout his career to be someone who doesn't walk a lot of batters, and that is remaining true even as he's aging here. He's still got good velocity on his fastball, and he's able to pinpoint that fastball still, not walking a lot of batters. And that whip is the key factor here. That's how you maintain a low ERA. You don't give up a lot of base runners. He's given up 17 home runs this season, but there hasn't been a lot of guys on base. That keeps your ERA low, and that keeps your team in ball games. He's been very, very valuable for the Washington Nationals this year. And for his career, he's continued to be dominant ever since he basically landed in Detroit, coming from Arizona. And then, of course, since he landed in Washington, you can look at the numbers there, how dominant he's been with Washington. Look at his whip. When in his 7 years with the Washington Nationals, it's still below a 1.00 whip. That is absolutely bonkers to me. A sub-3 ERA. In his career, 3-time Cy Young, 8-time All-Star. It doesn't really get much better than Max Scherzer. He's going to be the top name on the trade market, and he might slow down the market too for some of these other starting pitchers around the league, because you don't want to give up a lot to get a starting pitcher that isn't Max Scherzer if Scherzer's available. If that makes sense to you guys, I think Scherzer's for sure the top name on the market at this point. So where do the Washington Nationals sit as they consider possibly moving on from their Cy Young All-Star type pitcher? Well, at the time I'm recording this, they're 45-53. That's good enough for 4th in the NL East. They're 8 games back of the New York Mets, who have shown a little bit of weakness. That NL East isn't necessarily running away with that division. The Mets are definitely not running away with it. Lindor's on the IL right now. He hasn't been great all season. You're looking at a little bit of shakiness, which maybe makes some of those NL East teams considering buying. The Phillies, who I believe are at about 500, are looking at possibly buying at this point. They're 2nd in the division, and the Nationals aren't that far out. It wouldn't be out of the question for the Nationals to maybe make a run if they held on to Scherzer and, maybe even brought in some guys. If they did a few small buys on the edge of their roster to just maybe improve that 7, 8, 9 hole in their lineup, maybe add another spot starter and a couple relievers, this team could easily take this division. So at this point, this is what happened a few years ago when they ended up winning the World Series. Remember, they were down bad to start that season and then really picked it up after the All-Star break. So maybe the Nationals this year could find a similar groove and really start to roll in the second half of the season. They've got a very talented roster. You look at that team: Juan Soto, Trey Turner, 2 of the best hitters in baseball, of course, in one lineup. You're also looking at a very good rotation with Corbin, Strasburg, and Scherzer. They've got a really good team, but again, they're only 3 games ahead of the Miami Marlins, who are last in that division, and currently they have the 5th worst record in the National League. So unless there's a massive turnaround coming for them, they are not going to make the postseason, not even as a wild card team. So if you're sitting as the GM of the Nationals, I'm not sure if you can necessarily bank on a big turnaround. You've got a talented roster, but at the same time, trading a 36-year-old, I think, does make some sense. So should the Nationals actually trade Max Scherzer? Well, his contract status, he's sitting in the final year of his current deal, and it's at $27.36 million. So a lot of teams are going to be interested in buying it because it's a 1-year rental. You don't have a ton of money into the future that you have to worry about. And he's an unrestricted free agent this offseason, which means whatever team did acquire him would be able to offer the qualifying offer at $18.6 million. But at the same time, so could the Nationals if they decide to not trade him. And there is a key part of that we'll talk about here. So should the Nationals actually trade Scherzer? Yes, I think so, but only if they receive at least a top 5 prospect from a team's farm system. plus another top 20 prospect from that system, and then a top 30 from that system. So there's a few different teams around the league that you're looking at. The Padres, who still have a very strong farm system despite some of the trades that they've made, that could make some sense. You're also looking, maybe at a team like the New York Mets, which would be kind of strange because I don't necessarily think the Nationals will trade him in division, but the Mets would probably have to give up 2 top 10s just because their farm system's a little bit weaker after some of the other trades they've made. That they'll have to give up a little bit more in return. And the reason why they have to ask for so much, a top five prospect, another top 20, and a top 30, is not just because Max Scherzer is great. We all know how great Max Scherzer is, but it's because if you have the qualifying offer on him, worst case scenario, he leaves you in free agency this offseason, this winter, and you get a first-round pick recoup for him because he's not going to take the qualifying offer at $18.6 million. He's going to want to cash in one more time. He's probably going to look for a deal north of $23, $24 million, maybe a short-term deal, something like 2 years, $50 million, 2 years, $46 million, something in that area. I could see Scherzer looking at. That's a lot more than $18.6 million. So he's not going to sign that qualifying offer. And then at that point, whatever team signs him forfeits their first-round pick to you. So you want to be getting a top 5 prospect in return from a farm system because that's kind of similar value here to what Scherzer is. And the nice thing is you get to have a really good selection of where Scherzer goes then. And then that team, if you're looking at a team that's going to trade for Max Scherzer, being able to slap the qualifying offer on him and recoup some of your assets later by getting in a first-round pick in return if he leaves you, that's a pretty good return. So you have to kind of evaluate that if you're a team. So who are some teams that should be interested in acquiring Max Scherzer? First of all, the Boston Red Sox. They're in front of that AL East right now, 1 game ahead of my Tampa Bay Rays. And without Chris Sale this season, it's been obvious that they need a number 1 guy. Max Scherzer would be that on day 1 of him landing in Boston. San Diego, another team that's probably interesting to see on this list because they've got such a nice young collection of pitchers already, especially Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, not necessarily young, those two, but you're looking at a very, very good group. Mike Clevenger, of course, he's been injured as well, but the Padres have a nice pitching staff. They've got Paddock there as well, but still, Scherzer is just so good, so dominant, that you could make the case if you're San Diego that, hey, why don't we add one more guy, add to our depth, and when it comes to postseason time, you have some pitchers, some starters who could probably eat up innings as relievers as well. There's some real value there. And another team I think is really interesting in this process is the San Francisco Giants. They have the best record in the MLB, and I think if you asked anyone besides Giants fans before the season, no one would have expected that at this point, this deep into the season, that the Giants would be the number 1 team in baseball. And I think at this point, with how they've played, they have to hit that buy button. They have to go out, bring in a little bit more talent, kind of sends a message to the clubhouse saying, hey, management sees what you guys are doing, and we are thinking that this is a team that could go win a World Series. If they go buy on Max Scherzer, make him the ace in that rotation. I know that they've had other really good pitching as well this year. You don't get to the top of the MLB without great pitching, but Scherzer is just another level above what they have, and he would elevate that team even further. It's 2 teams I think that it could also be interesting grabs, but less likely, in my opinion, are the Seattle Mariners and the Houston Astros. The Mariners right now 8 games above 500, a quality team out there in the AL West. I think that they could look to grab Max Scherzer and try and really make a push for the playoffs. They've got some young guys coming up as well, and I think the Mariners rebuild has gone very well so far. And also the Astros, their team, they've been very interested in having a very strong trio of starting pitchers, especially in years past. You're looking at when they had Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, and Zach Greinke. Now you basically replace Garrett Cole with Max Scherzer this year, and you're looking at a team that's destined to do a lot of good things and go deep into the playoffs. Even last year when they struggled in the 60-game season, they still made it deep into the playoffs. They're built for playoff baseball, even though I don't like the Houston Astros personally because of some trash can incidents and so on. But I think that they're still a very talented team. And if you look at bringing Max Scherzer in, they're a team that could win the World Series possibly. So Scherzer is going to be a guy who tilts the balance here, tilts the scale for a lot of different teams, I think. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on if a deal does happen with Max Scherzer. We are going to be streaming during the trade deadline day. So make sure you guys are here for that. We don't want you to miss out on it. Thanks again, guys, so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the very next video.